When Clayton Russell walked up to the front steps of the Hartwell Museum on the night of October 18th, the young man at the rope put a hand flat against his chest and told him to stop. The lobby behind the glass was all gold light and gowns. A string quartet somewhere, champagne on silver, the smell of lilies and money, a line of black cars idling at the curb, letting out men in tuxedos and women in dresses that cost more than most people's cars. And here was a wide man who had walked up on foot, alone, in a plain dark suit with no tie, no jewelry, no watch, no entourage. He looked like he had taken a wrong turn on his way somewhere else. 4 championships, a jacket in the Hall of Fame, a net worth past $800 million, one of the most recognized faces in America. The young guard at the rope did not recognize a single thing about it. He saw the plain suit. He saw the size of the man. He saw no VIP credential on the lanyard everyone else was wearing. And his hand came up. Whoa. Private event, sir. Invitation and photo ID. His eyes did a slow trip up and down. You're not on my list. I need you to step back from the rope. This is a ticketed gala for invited guests. 2 women in gowns slowed to watch. A man behind them lifted his phone, and Clayton Russell said absolutely nothing. He took 1 step back, exactly as asked. He folded his big hands in front of him, and he looked at the young man's face the way you look at a face you are sure you have seen before, but cannot place. The forearm was the first thing. When the guard raised his hand, his cuff slid back, and on the inside of his right forearm there was a small tattoo. Hand poked, the way they do it when there is no money for a real shop. A name. 4 letters Clay could not fully read in the gold light, but the shape of them landed somewhere in his chest and stayed there. That was the first thing he noticed. He noticed the rest. He noticed the way the young man cracked his knuckles when he was nervous. 1 at a time, thumb to pinky, in order, the same rhythm every time. Clay's eyes caught on that and would not let go. He noticed the chain at the young man's collar, a small brass medal on it. A St. Christopher, worn smooth, the kind a person carries for 30 years. Far too old to belong to a man this young. Clay's own hand drifted toward his jacket pocket, then stopped. He noticed when another guard said something under his breath and the young man laughed, a short bark of a laugh, head tipped back. And whatever that laugh was, it hit Clay like a hand on the back of the neck, and for a second the big man could not breathe. He had a photograph folded in his inside pocket. He pressed his thumb against it through the fabric. He did not take it out. He noticed everything. He said nothing. He stood behind the rope at his own party and waited, looking at a face he could not stop looking at. Now here is the part that nobody on those steps understood yet. The man in the plain suit had not wandered up to the wrong building. He had a reason to be at the Hartwell that night that not one person in that gold-lit lobby knew. He had been carrying that reason for 19 years. Since the morning he buried his only brother and came home to find the rest of his family had vanished into the city like smoke. What the young guard had no idea about was one single fact, a fact that connected the 2 of them by blood, a fact that would empty every drop of color out of that young man's face before the night was over. And trust me, you are not going to see this ending coming. Because when you find out who that boy at the rope really is, and why a man worth $800 million was standing there letting himself be turned away without a word, you are going to feel it in a place you did not know you kept open. So stay with us for the whole video, because the secret on those steps is not about a celebrity being blocked at a party. It is about a search that lasted 19 years, ending 3 feet away from a man who did not recognize his own face when it was looking right at him. Clayton Russell was born in 1972. In a part of Memphis, the tour buses do not pass through, the second of two boys. In a house where the heat worked when it felt like it, and the love worked all the time. Their mother raised them mostly alone. She was a small woman, 5'1", with a back bent from cleaning office buildings at night and a spine made of something no machine could bend. She had one sentence she said so often, it stopped being a sentence and became the air in that house. She would catch one of her boys about to walk past someone who needed something, and she would say it low and certain. You take care of your people, baby, especially the ones who can't take care of you back. That's the only kind of rich that counts. It's but the one who raised Clay in all the ways a big brother raises a little one was Vernon. Vernon Russell was 3 years older, and he was everything Clay wanted to be. Funny in a way that made grown men laugh against their will. Quick, kind to a fault. He cracked his knuckles one at a time when he was thinking, thumb to pinky. And he wore a St. Christopher medal their grandmother had pressed into his hand. And he had a laugh that started low and tipped his whole head back. He carried Clay on his shoulders to school. He taught him to shoot on a rim with no net. And when the world started leaning on Clay, too poor, too big, too dark for a place that kept saying so, Vernon would grab the back of his neck and pull him close and say the thing Clay would carry his whole life. You take care of your people, little bro. Even the ones who don't know they're yours yet. You hear me? You don't ever walk past family. But Memphis is hard on gentlemen. Vernon got hurt working construction at 24, and the pills they gave him for the pain became the pills he could not stop, because there was no clinic, no bed, no door anywhere in that city that would take a young black man with no money and a habit he did not ask for. Clay was just starting to make real money. He sent some. He should have come home. He told himself there would be time. Vernon died at 27, in a county hospital hallway, waiting for a bed that never came. He left behind a girlfriend named Renee and a baby boy, not yet 2. And in the raw, terrible weeks after the funeral, while Clay was 1,000 miles away, losing his mind in a way nobody saw, Renee packed up that baby and disappeared. No forwarding address, no phone. A frightened young woman with a child and no reason to trust that a famous brother-in-law she barely knew would do right by them. By the time Clay surfaced and went looking, the trail was already cold. He looked for 19 years, private investigators, old neighbors, every Renee in 3 states. He never found them. So he did the only thing his grief and his money could do. He built the doors that did not exist for Vernon. He funded recovery clinics. He funded a network of free care across the city. He built a foundation that pulled young men out of foster care and group homes and put them into jobs and night classes. Because somewhere out there was a boy with his brother's blood, and Clay could not find him. So he decided to take care of all of them and hope. He kept Vernon's St. Christopher in his pocket every single day. He carried one photograph everywhere. Vernon, grinning, head tipped back mid-laugh, holding a baby boy on his shoulder. That night, the gala at the Hartwell was the public launch of his foundation's biggest gift yet. A $100 million fund for the city's children, built and named in secret for a brother who died in a hallway. He had RSVP'd under a plain name. He had asked for no special treatment. He wanted, just once, to walk into the thing he built like an ordinary man. The young man at the rope was not a cruel man. He was a scared one, which is sometimes harder to see. His name was Andre Pierce, and he was 24 years old, and he had been a security guard for exactly 6 weeks. It was the best job he had ever had, and he was terrified of losing it. Andre had grown up with his mother, Renee, in 3 different cities, in apartments that were always one missed payment from gone. His mother loved him and worked herself sick and never once talked about his father, except to say he had been a good man who died young. Andre had a name tattooed on his arm, his father's, hand-poked at 16 by a friend, because it was the only thing of his father's he was allowed to keep. He had a St. Christopher medal his mother said had been his dad's. He cracked his knuckles when he was nervous, thumb to pinky, a habit he did not know he had inherited from a man he could not remember. When Renee passed 2 years ago, Andre had no one. He aged through the cracks the way young men do. And then a foundation he had never heard of, a job placement program for men who had come up the way he had, got him an interview with a security company. He did not know who funded it. He did not know the man who funded it was, at that very moment, standing on the other side of his rope. He only knew this was his shot, and that his supervisor had told him the gala was crawling with VIPs, and that the fastest way to be fired was to let the wrong person through. So he had gone in that night carrying a single instruction, sharp as a blade. Check everyone, no exceptions, do not embarrass the museum. He had spent the whole evening certain that one mistake would put him back on the street. So when a big man in a plain suit with no credential walked up looking like he did not belong, every fear Andre had came up through his arm and into his hand. He did not see a person. He saw the mistake that could cost him everything. He put his hand up before he had decided to. The second it touched the man's chest, something in Andre flinched. He did not know why. He held the rope anyway. By the time the standoff at the rope hit its second minute, the night had begun to bend around it. A young volunteer named Tasha Brooks had seen the whole thing from the coat check, 22, working the gala for community service hours. Wearing borrowed shoes that hurt, she came over fast and quiet. "Andre, ease up. He's not bothering anybody," she said. And then to Clay, gently, "Sir, let me find you a chair. We'll get this sorted. I'm so sorry." She did not know who he was. She was simply kind to a man being treated like a problem, which is the rarest thing there is. Andre's supervisor, a heavy-set man named Frank, came stamping over with his radio already up. He took one look at the big man, decided he was trouble, and made it worse. "Sir, if you don't have a credential, you need to leave the property. Andre, why is he still standing here? You want this job or not?" Behind the coat check counter, an old woman named Miss Pearl watched it all. 71 years old, 30 years working every gala this museum had ever thrown. She had seen 1,000 rich men swept inside and 1,000 plain ones turned away, and her mouth had gone thin and hard. But she said nothing. Not yet. For a moment it looked like it might end the simple way. Clay began to turn, slowly, like a man who had been turned away from finer rooms than this. He would go in the side. He would not make a scene at his brother's party. But across the lobby, through the glass, a small woman in a deep blue gown had stopped mid-conversation and was staring at the man on the steps. She was the mayor. And the mayor knew exactly who he was, because she had spent the afternoon in a closed-door meeting learning the name behind the $100 million gift. The name everyone in city government had been trying to uncover for weeks. She set down her glass. She started walking toward the doors. But before you see what the mayor did when she reached those steps, and she did something that stopped the entire gala cold, you need to understand what was folded in that man's jacket pocket. You need to know whose name was on that boy's arm. Because what happened next was not a powerful man finally being recognized. It was a brother, keeping a promise to a brother, 19 years too late and right on time. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The whole front of the Hartwell Museum held its breath. The mayor came through the doors, and the string quartet faltered, and a hush rolled backward into the lobby as people turned. She walked straight past Frank, past the rope, straight to the big man in the plain suit. And in front of 400 of the wealthiest people in the city, Mayor Lydia Okafor stopped, and she bowed. A real bow from the waist, the kind you do not see anymore. "Mr. Russell," she said, and her voice carried in the silence. "On behalf of every child in this city who is going to live because of what you did this week, forgive us for making you wait at your own door." The name moved through the crowd like a current. Big Clay Russell, the man who built the fund, the anonymous donor, the whole reason they were all standing in that gold light holding champagne. Frank made a sound like a tire losing air. Andre Pierce went the color of paper and dropped his hand from the rope as if it had caught fire. Clay finally moved. But he did not look at the mayor, and he did not look at the crowd. He turned back to the young guard who had just blocked him, and on his face there was no anger at all. There was something that looked impossibly like wonder. "It's all right," Clay said quietly to Frank, to everyone. "Nobody's losing a job tonight." The young man was doing exactly what he was told. He held up a hand to stop Frank's apology before it started. "Leave him be." Then he did the smallest possible thing. He reached into his jacket and took out a single folded photograph and held it so only Andre could see it. A young man, head tipped back mid-laugh, a St. Christopher at his throat. A baby boy on his shoulder. Andre looked at it. He looked at the medal on his own chest. He looked at the name on his own arm, and his hands started to shake. "What's your daddy's name, son?" Clay asked. Soft. Just for him. "Vernon?" Andre whispered. "Vernon Russell. He died before I could—" "He cracked his knuckles like that," Clay said. "Thumb to pinky, every time he was nervous. You've been doing it this whole time." His own voice broke clean in half. "I gave him that medal's brother. I've been carrying his picture for 19 years. He put one enormous hand on the back of the young man's neck and pulled him close, the exact way Vernon used to pull him close. "You're Vernon's boy," he said. And then, so the whole silent room could hear what mattered most, "You're one of mine." 4 words, and the gala came apart. The tattoo, the medal, the laugh, the 19 years of looking, all of it collapsed into one sentence on the steps of a museum, and grown men in tuxedos put their hands over their mouths. Andre Pierce, who had blocked his own uncle at the door an hour after that uncle's money had quietly handed him this very job, broke down into the chest of a man he had never met and had been missing his entire life. The job placement program that found him, the clinic system, the whole foundation. Clay had built every bit of it casting a net for one lost boy. And tonight, by the impossible arithmetic of grace, the net had finally closed, and his brother's son had been standing at the door the whole time. Tasha Brooks, the volunteer who had pulled up a chair for a stranger, was crying without knowing exactly why. Clay found her in the crowd over Andre's shoulder. "You were kind to a man you thought had nothing," he said. "Come see me Monday. Your school's paid for, all of it, and there's a job with my foundation waiting whenever you want it." And Miss Pearl, behind the coat check counter, finally said her one thing, soft and sure, to the whole shining room. 30 years I've watched them turn the plain ones away," she said. "Took the Lord this long to send one back through the front door?" She nodded once, like a period at the end of a sentence, and went back to her coats. So here is where everyone on those steps ended up. A volunteer who showed kindness to a stranger had her whole future paid for. A frightened supervisor learned what he'd nearly thrown away. An old woman who'd watched the door for 30 years finally got to say her piece. And a man worth $800 million, blocked at his own party by his own blood, chose in 1 second not to be angry, but to be family. Because his brother had taught him, before he died in a hallway, that you do not ever walk past your people. Not even the ones who don't know they're yours yet. Clayton Russell never made Andre apologize, and he never let Frank fire him because his mother taught him and his brother proved it. You do not measure a man by how he treats the people who block his way. You measure him by who he claims when the whole room is finally watching. You take care of your people, little bro, even the ones who don't know they're yours yet. You hear me? You don't ever walk past family. Vernon Russell said it on a Memphis street to a little brother who was listening. And that little brother spent $800 million and 19 years building a city full of open doors, just in case one of them led back to the boy his brother left behind. It did. It led to a rope at a gala, where a young man put up his hand to stop a stranger, and got an uncle and a name and a whole family back instead. So before you go, do this for me. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. And tell us about someone you lost too soon that you'd give anything to see one more time. We read every single one. If this one reached in and got you, hit that like button, not for me, but for every Vernon who died in a hallway waiting for a door that should have been open. Subscribe and come be part of this family, because we tell these stories every week, and there's a seat here with your name on it. And the next one is already waiting right there on your screen. We will see you there.